Okay, hello my lefties. So I know when I do wheel throwing, it's normally right-handed. So we're gonna switch it up and do a little bit of left-handed throwing. Let's see how good I am at it. So when you're left-handed, you wanna make sure to have your wheel spin clockwise. Okay, so we got the wedged clay. We have the surface that we're going to put the clay on is already damp or has a little bit of water, right? We don't want to put too much, just a tiny bit with our sponge because we want the ball to connect to it. And we're going to put the ball on center, eyeball it, and as the wheel spins a little bit, we're going to press it into place. You can push the top a little bit. Okay, and let's see, I'm wiggling it. It's staying in place. Okay, so now you want to get your hands wet. You want to get your ball wet. You want to spin the wheel. And you're going to use your right hand, the base of the palm or the heel of your right hand up against that ball. Okay, this hand is the one that's your elbow is going to be tucked into your hip or your inner thigh so that it's the arm of steel, right? This is the one that makes it stay on center. Okay, the opposite hand, which is your left hand, you're going to use the edge to do a little karate chop on top of it. Now you're not going to smack it, you're just going to hold that stance because you're going to be pressing down. So you're pressing in, you're pressing down, and you're going to create a little cake. So let's do that. Okay, the heel of my hand of my right, the edge of my left hand, and it kind of looks like I'm doing a little praying position. We hold that for a little bit until we feel some of that wobble go away. Okay, that's not bad. Once again, the trick is really keeping that right hand nice and sturdy. Okay, I've made a cake looking thing. So a little tip that I like to share with everyone is you can put your finger up against the edge where the wheel meets the clay, and it's like as if you were putting silicone between these two pieces. This actually creates a seal, so you won't have it sliding off center and giving you all that fun activity where it doesn't want to stay. Okay, so now we're going to cone up. When we cone up, that makes the clay work with the circulation, with the movement that we're doing already with the wheel. It really does help. I used to skip this part because, it's just more work. But honestly, it makes the clay much more easy to manipulate. And we're going to do 2 cones. So you get the water wet, and you're pinching the bottom, and you're just kind of pulling up, you're making a little cone. I mean, did you play with mud and make cone before? Make cones, make pyramids? Okay, so I made a cute little cone. That's great. I'm gonna put the heel of my right hand towards the edge. I'm gonna use my left hand to actually push forward and down to make this into a cake again. The reason I put this hand here is just so that when I smush the clay back down, I can tell when it's reached that cake position, because I'll feel it here. Okay, so we're smushing down, and we're gonna get back to the strong arm with a karate formation. Nice. Okay, now let's do another cone. Pushing on the bottom, and you're pulling that clay up. Oh, I got a little wobble, but don't worry, we'll get that settled. Okay, nice cone. I'm gonna put the heel of my hand here to gauge when I make that little cake. I'm gonna push down and forward to get rid of that little cone that we made, right? And now we're gonna morph back into the strong arm and the karate chop, right? Or a little prayer position. Okay, I got a nice little cake. So what happens next? We need to make a hole, right? We want to start by putting our index finger of our left hand. We're going to put it in the center, and then we're going to use the index finger of our right hand to help us push. And you're just pushing and keeping it at a 45-degree angle. Don't go all the way down because, well, you want to have a bottom, right? So as I was pushing down, I was just pushing down like this. So I'm going to stop the wheel. I'm actually going to see how deep I push that in. We're going to use a pin tool, which comes in the beginner kits. You're going to press that down in the center. You're going to put your finger where the clay and the tool meet, and you'll see what sticks out, right? That's about 1/2 inch. So from the top of your thumb to the first knuckle is about 1 inch. So you can use that to gauge, right, whenever you're trying to measure. So I got about 1/2 inch, which is good for, especially for beginners. That'll be fine. And you can always go down to probably 1/4 inch. It's probably the thinnest I'll go. Okay, so the next step is we're going to put 2 fingers in, and we're going to push out like this, right? I want the space to be bigger. I don't want it to just be like a cone on the inside. So let's go ahead and get some water in the bowl, water on our hands, and then I'm going to use these fingers, and I'm just going to pull that out until I get to the size that I want my vessel to be. And I think that's cool right there. So you can use your fingers to smooth out any of those little ridges that you made, and you can also use your sponge. Okay, so now we have our nice vessel. We need to start pulling these walls up. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this finger on the outside on the lower part, this finger on the inside, which is, so they're about a 1/2 inch difference, right? Because this base is about 1 inch, 1/2 inch thick. And so they're going to be pressing against each other. Don't press too hard, especially not at the beginning, until you really get a feel for how this clay works for you. So we're just going to be pinching in a little bit, and we're going to be pulling up, but we're going to be pulling up and inward. So pretend there's like a little thread coming up from the center of this pot, and that's the direction that you're trying to go, right? Because if you go straight up, usually it'll tilt out a little bit. And of course, if you go out, it's just centrifugal force is going to want to pull it and make it flat. Okay, so let's put some water on the inside and outside. We're going to get water all over our hands. And we are going to start pulling upward and inward. Okay, that was one good pull. Look how tall that got already. So we want to use our left index finger to compress the top. You're just putting a little bit of pressure. And then you want to use the right hand index finger and thumb to pinch the rim. This helps compress some of the water out of it and make sure that it doesn't get any cracks. So that's a nice pull. We're going to get this wet and do another pull. All right, so once again, this left hand finger is out on the outside on the bottom. Inside finger is on the inside, also touching the bottom, but they're about a 1/2 inch difference. And we're going to start pinching and pulling inward. Nice. And you see how I'm connecting my hands? That also helps keep the stability. Okay, so that's a nice pull. So what I like to do is between 2 or 3 pulls, I usually end up cleaning up the slip. So let's clean up some slip. This clay, or clay in general, is absorbing the water that you're putting on it at a certain rate. So the more water you leave out on it, the more fragile or weak it gets. So we want to be able to play with this clay as long as we can. So we try to remove as much of that extra water in between our pulls. Okay, so let's do another pull. We'll put some water on our hands and on our vessel. We have this finger on the inside, the right hand finger. The left finger is on the outside. I'm connecting my hands and we're pinching together and pulling upwards and inward. Okay. Now we're going to compress the top. I'm sorry, wrong hand. Compress the top with our left index finger and pinch the rim with our right hand. Nice. Okay, let's see if we can do one more pull. And we'll put some water. And let's get that pull going. Connecting my hands, pinching the clay, pulling inward and upward. Ooh, nice. That's a good pull. Okay. Let's get rid of that extra slip. I'm not sure if I did this yet. Let's go ahead and compress the rim and pinch it as well. Okay. Now we're picking up that extra water from the inside. Kind of pressing down a little bit with my sponge, compressing the inside of my container because, you know, that will also help it avoid cracks. And usually the cracks happen when things are drying at not different rates, but let's say one section is very thick. It's going to have a lot of water, so it's going to take longer to dry than a thinner section and things of that sort. But also, if you put a bunch of water somewhere, like let's say I just left a bunch of water on the inside, it's going to either disintegrate it or crack it. Okay, so I feel like I've got most of that out. The next step would be to make the bottom production pottery ready. And what we'll use for that is this wood knife. Sorry, I was going to say clay knife. It is for clay, but it's not made out of clay. It's made out of wood. And so what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that this is nice and flat, right? So that you get the right orientation. So if you had laid it down on your wheel and the pointy tip is at the top, that's how you're going to use it. And you're going to stab the corner, the bottom, to give it a beveled edge. So maybe about a 1/4 inch up at a 45-degree angle, you're going to stab it. So I'm going to modify my pot so that the top is a little bit more inward. That way you can see what I'm doing at the bottom. So you don't have to do this step. I'm just doing it for you. Of course, if you're trying to make a little round vessel, this would probably be a good next move. Okay. So we have our knife and we have the area we want to stab. You want to make sure you keep your hand nice and straight, otherwise it's going to wobble all over the place. But you can do it. I believe in you. Okay, we're going to stab it. Keep that knife there and then tilt it. I don't think I did the tilt all that great. Let's see if I can do the tilt where you tilt it out and it actually flattens out that clay. So what you want to do now is move the wheel really slow as you're separating that clay that you just took off, right? So let's see if I can slowly move this wheel and get those little ribbons of clay. Now this clay is very wet, so it can re-stick to what you just unstuck it from, and it's going to be hard to take it off without making a mess. So let's try to avoid that. Right, it's trying to re-stick. Don't do it. Oh, nice. Okay, so we got that extra clay out. And I want to remove any slip from the outside. I think I already removed all the slip from the inside. And kind of smooth out that little beveled edge. So it gives it a little raised edge. It looks more finished. And maybe I will have to stick my sponge in there to get that extra slip out, right? Nice. Okay, so now I have this finished piece and we need to wire it off. Now, if you've noticed, you probably noticed I have a bat here. So this is a wooden bat. I have several of these. I make something, I wire it off, and then I move this bat onto one of my shelves and I continue making something else. So that's something you'll see in a production potter's studio or, you know, a hobbyist that really took it to the next level. But most beginners don't have this, and so I want to show you how to take this off of the wheel. So the reason we have to wire it off is because it's going to start drying and shrinking, and well, the wood or the metal is not going to start moving with it, so the piece will just end up cracking. And well, we spent a lot of time making this, so we don't want to mess it up. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the wire, and this comes in beginner's kits, right? And it's very long, so oopsie, I just touched my pot. You want to wrap it around your hand, right? So it depends how small your hands are, how big your hands are. You might have to do it a couple times. And then you're going to have your 2 thumbs hold it down in place. So you can just pull straight forward. Sometimes it's a little bit tough. It's usually easiest right when you made something, but you can definitely do that. Just pull straight towards you. Keep your thumbs down the entire time. If you start lifting up, it'll start cutting up. And then, yeah, then we'll have an issue, because then it won't be the same base. You're going to have a weird wobble base. It might even cut through the base. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to use the wheel to help me. So as I'm pulling down, I'm just going to have the wheel moving just a tiny bit. And of course, I kept my thumbs stuck the entire time, and I kept that wire taut, pulled the entire time. And now I have wired it off successfully, so that's good. Okay, so the next step is I gotta lift this. This is gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to lift this off, but I can't do it with all the slip on my hands. So I'm gonna use my sponge from my bucket and try to wipe off as much of that slip as I can from my hands. I'm also going to use a little towel that I've been using, just a little hand towel. Wipe off as much of that clay and water. So it works best when your hands are dry. So we have some dry hands. We have a pot where we wiped off the slip and we wired it. And now we're going to pick it up. So just make sure that you have a place to put it as you're lifting it up. Otherwise, you're going to be holding a pot and possibly distorting it, right? We're trying to lift it up, keep it in that same shape, and, because it's a nice shape. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my palms on the outside. They're nice and dry. And then I'm going to lift this up. Ooh, nice. And I'm going to place it somewhere safe for it to dry. And now we have this, just a little bit of mud on the wheel. So what I like to do is I use my wooden rib. Can be used for many things, but this is one of my favorite things to do with it, is just scrape off that excess mud. All right, makes it easier. Like if I tried to clean all this with just a sponge, I'm gonna work a little bit harder, and well, I'm all for making things a little bit easier. Okay, nice. And then you get a sponge and wipe the rest off. So if you're using a public studio for public use time, you want to make sure you learn how to clean your wheel. And the really important thing about these wheels is, especially for the metal tops, which, I mean, there's a metal top under this. If you don't clean it off, you leave some clay on it, it's going to start rusting. It's going to get patina. It's going to, not the things that you want on your pottery wheel. So make sure to, if you don't get to anything else, look at my little sloppy slop. If you don't get to anything else, at least get to the top and the side of that metal wheel to make sure that it doesn't get rusted. Okay, hopefully this helped and that you're on your way to making pots. If you have any questions or you feel like I left anything out, let me know and I will do my best to add that in or answer those questions. So until next time, bye.